One.
Hi, I'm Sarah Nell, and today I'm here to speak with you about a user case that we did at ManpowerGroup. And the name of my presentation today is Tableau Made Me Do It, the story of how 20 people became one at ManpowerGroup. As you can see by my slides here, my name is Sarah Nell. So hi there, I'm Sarah Nell, and as you can see, I work for ManpowerGroup. I've actually been with ManpowerGroup for almost 8 years now, and we are located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which brings me to the first part of my presentation today. I actually wanted to give you a brief overview of Milwaukee, since it really impacts the type of business that ManpowerGroup actually is and where our corporate headquarters is. It plays a large role in not just how we are culturally within our community, but how we impact our community at large too. We're also the second largest business in Wisconsin, so not just Milwaukee is impacted, but Wisconsin overall. Plus, I love Milwaukee and wanted to share it with people who potentially haven't been there before or would like to think about visiting it in the future, or maybe Manpower itself. I'm not sure if anyone has seen it, but Will Ferrell actually had a few commercials out there for Old Milwaukee beer, and he goes into a description of what Milwaukee comes from on one of them while he's riding on a bicycle, but here it is for you. Milwaukee actually comes from the Algonquin word for Milioque, which means good, beautiful, and pleasant land. I can actually probably guarantee you that the majority of people in Milwaukee don't even know that. I myself had to actually look it up on Wikipedia to find out what it meant. From my childhood, I actually thought that it meant the meeting of three rivers because we had a bunch of rivers in the city, but it wasn't that. So I'm learning right along with you about what Milwaukee actually means. Perhaps some of you are familiar with what you might know about Milwaukee. We've had our claim to fame over the years. We have been known for such great classic television hits like Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, or if you hear about Milwaukee overall, you think about beer and probably sausage and cheese. We are definitely known for that, and in these pictures here you can see some of those great things. Right in the middle you actually see U-Singers, and that is one of the largest producers of sausage in the Wisconsin and also Milwaukee area, and it's right down the road from Manpower actually. We're all located on that lovely river you see. What we also are is part of the Schlitz Park, and Schlitz Park is where the Schlitz Brewery used to be located, and that is exactly where ManpowerGroup is located now. I couldn't put this up without providing a Brewers logo for Milwaukee, because anyone who lives here lives and breathes the Brewers. It's kind of like Chicago and their Cubs. We always support our Brewers no matter what's going on right now, even if they do have Ryan Braun as part of that, if you guys know about that. And if you ever visit our great city, then the place to get your picture or photo bomb would actually be with the Bronze Fonz. He's a life-size statue of the Fonz right on that river walk you see for U-Singers there as well. All of these great places are within walking distance, even some of the places that Laverne and Shirley and their bottling companies and things like that. So those are things at large about Milwaukee that you might hear about us. But here's one thing I think you should know about Milwaukee. Gene Wilder is from Milwaukee, and being a fan of the movie Willy Wonka, I just had to share that with you. So now when you play Trivial Pursuit in the future, you can tell your friends, Gene Wilder, Milwaukee, Willy Wonka, and the original, not the Johnny Depp version. One of the other great things about Milwaukee that I love that actually affects our day-to-day life that you may not even know, but we changed the world here with Christopher Latham Scholes, and he actually invented the first practical typewriter and the QWERTY keyboard that all of us, every single person in this room today, actually use. It was also invented in downtown Milwaukee, much like many of those other businesses. It's very much an epicenter in Milwaukee. So you can actually think every time you type on your keyboard or you send a text message via keyboard on your phone, smartphone, all of that started here in Milwaukee, which I think it's pretty amazing that something like that, that the world would not be the same without, actually was created in my lovely hometown. And the one thing that I would love to talk about today, and also my company overall, I love that Manpower is going to continue to be a place that changes the world from Milwaukee. Not just the world, but Milwaukee itself. Milwaukee would not be the same community without such a powerhouse like ManpowerGroup within its community. Manpower actually has grown from one office downtown Milwaukee in 1948. We are now a $22 billion business that works with nearly 500,000 clients and over 4 million associates each year. And there you can see a picture of our headquarters actually on that same river I was just talking about. They have actually taken a lot of care within the building to be very green, and when you first walk in, there's actually these acorn-shaped globes for lights that they're created so you can't even see light bulbs in them. So the building overall is actually a very neat place. If anyone ever comes to visit, just look me up and I can take you on a tour. That brings me to my company overall, ManpowerGroup. ManpowerGroup has done a lot of things in the world of business, and just like the government has told us what's going on with the economy overall, Manpower does the exact same thing. Being the type of business that Manpower is, we have a very introspective look at what's going on in the world of work overall that a lot of companies do not have. Being a human capital business, which is an interesting phrase overall, but one that you'll hear bandied about, especially in temporary labor or any type of human resource business, human capital. But you learn what's going on, just you're under a different microscope when you're doing that. ManpowerGroup is actually the parent company of many other businesses actually under its umbrella. I personally work for the actual ManpowerGroup and the headquarters, like I said, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But under that, we have a few other businesses as well that you may have heard of. We have ManpowerGroup Solutions, Manpower, which is the one most people have heard of. We also have Experis and also Right Management. Within those Manpower brands, they have very different purposes under that ManpowerGroup umbrella. ManpowerGroup, being the parent company, is more of the global leader when it comes to innovative workforce solutions. They try to make it possible for businesses to access talent that is needed by connecting visions with the people that deliver on them. And hopefully their success leads to our success as well. Within those brands, then Experis is actually known more for their professional talent placement. It's more for a lot of people in this room today are IT professionals or overall in a professional career placement. That would be something Experis would handle more than anything. They're trying to attract and assess and place specialized expertise. Manpower itself is more of the actual staffing, the more classic view of Manpower you may have heard of over the years. They're going to provide you with staffing, or if you have someone going out on medical leave or anything like that, that's your typical classic placement, and that's where Manpower comes in. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have Right Management. Right Management is more of a workforce optimization. This is where you really don't want to be involved with Right Management. If your company is going out of business, it's something like that where you would contact Right Management. So as you can see, especially with the economic trends within the last few years since 2008, 2009, Right Management has definitely seen an upswing in business due to that. Since we have so many different brands underneath the ManpowerGroup umbrella, there's a lot of data that goes into this. As you can see, here are some facts about ManpowerGroup overall and the different points that would feed into our data sources. We have over 400,000 clients worldwide. Across the globe, we have 3,600 offices. For employees within ManpowerGroup, we have 5 million. On any given day, right now as I'm speaking to you, we have over 500,000 associates on assignment. In North America alone, we have 800 offices and growing. And across the world, we have 80 countries and territories that we are in. So it's not just data from one state, one small metro community. We actually have global data that's feeding into Manpower. That's why we believe that we should put our data and harness it better than we have been in the past. Manpower is entering what we have identified as being a new era of what is called the human age. In recent years, ManpowerGroup has identified what we call the human age. This is defined as a new era, as you may have heard of the Stone Age, the Iron, and the Bronze Age. These are all things that we've learned through history. The world's gone through experiences and changes that were so transformational and encompassing that it redefined what everyone knew as the common everyday experience. We have gone through all those, and now with the new age, the human age, we believe instead of it being something inanimate that was moving those, we see this as being the true power of human potential is going to be fully realized in the human age. The world is experiencing a global readjustment in which powerful forces in flight over the last few years are converging to create a new reality. Business models will need to be redesigned, value propositions redefined, and social systems reinvented. In this new reality, human potential has become the major agent of economic growth. People have taken their rightful place at center stage as the world's source of inspiration, passion, innovation, and now the driving force behind endeavor and enterprise. The human age has introduced a new organizations today must overcome. ManpowerGroup has been no exception to that. Our industry is changing, absolutely driven by our clients' needs. So no longer is the norm for us to provide a temp for just maternity leave or for a short-term absence. We've been known for that in the past, but we've had to change just like every other company. We still have that, but clients have evolved to look at flexible labor as a core component to their business strategy. To augment for seasonality, for uncertain demand, and for their upstream demand that can be volatile. Just like manufacturers have leaned up inventories and moved to more just-in-time production and distribution, the demand they place on providers like Manpower is the exact same. Immediate service, they want response and delivery. With that, data and analytics have never been as important as they are right now. We need to become more predictive and anticipatory about our demand and clients. We need to provide responses and services to clients, sometimes before they actually know that they need it. We need to integrate our services and our demand management directly with theirs, sometimes all the way upstream to their ultimate client. Add that to an input to their process, and that is not static like a component or a widget. Humans, while predictable, are not all made equal. We have to get very creative with what we need to do. And that's where my department was born, analytics. Manpower recognized that there needed to be a change, and so they decided that they were going to be more data-driven and that they were going to move forward with technology and also with data. This is my team, the analytics team. As you could see before from all the different offices worldwide across Manpower, we're a very large company. The people you see here, all 6 of us, are what support that entire company. I did have a director who was involved since the inception of the analytics team since 2011, Nan, and he is right there in the middle. But he has taken a position with Right Management, and I now have a new director, Todd Filter, aptly named for what we're doing. So here is Todd introducing himself into our team photo. We haven't had a chance since we all work remotely to actually take a new team photo, so he enjoyed that I inserted him into this. And my screen does it. There we go. So ManpowerGroup analytics team, since we're relatively new, like I said, since 2011, we're still defining how we fit into the organization. We're constantly trying to push boundaries and barriers and find new and different ways to gather data. Manpower has all of those different components. Now we're just trying to harness it. So in the last year, we've actually created a vision statement and a mission statement to try to define where we want to go as a department. For our vision statement, we wanted to power the world to work through scalable, advanced analytics and be recognized as the industry leader in labor insights. For our mission statement, we want to leverage available data assets toward our clients' competitive advantage, providing actionable insight through the use of data that tells a story that is easily consumable. Be a guide through unknown and unmapped territories to facilitate data-driven business decisions that result in the best-in-class performance for our clients. A little story, while we were going through this, we took a day to set aside to define what we wanted to do as a department. When we were going through this, I'm kind of a Star Trek dork, as it were, and I have to say that be a guide through unknown and unmapped territories definitely sounded like William Shatner speak to me. So if anyone finds that humorous, I do, but thanks. So, but being a new team, we took on different projects of what we needed to do. Nobody in our company really had used analytics to their competitive advantage yet, and we were really working in multiple different silos and not really creating scalable projects. The one thing that I had been involved in previous to the analytics department was customer-facing reporting. This is where we had individual salespeople supporting their own clients' needs. We did not have a scalable product that was actually being rolled out to our clients. What you saw for one customer wasn't necessarily what was being given to the other customer. Specifically, what we provided was a customer business review. As you can see here on this slide on the left, it was actually created in Excel, and Excel is a great tool. It does a lot of different things, and it can be very, very powerful, and a lot of us today still use it. I know I do. The way that it works, though, is our reporting, we had multiple reports that we used from a Cognos platform, which, if anyone's familiar with that, it sits on top of a data warehouse and it helps teach you reports. They can either be repeatable reports or they can be ad hoc, at least within the Manpower company. So if it's not set up to be an automated request, reports could actually take days to return. Depending on the size of it and the complexity of it, sometimes you had to wait well over a week. This would be what you're looking at on the left, actually would be probably 5 to 6 different reports that would go into it. Since it wasn't a scalable product, it was actually supported by the individual sales teams that were unique to the customer or the client. This could be a main salesperson, the account executive, who is in charge of that specific account, and then they would generally have a few people under them who would help to put these different pieces together. So you would have a whole team actually working on this rather than one individual. Since you have so many different people involved in it, this actually took weeks to complete, and you would have multiple different reviews to go through and different iterations. And once again, because you had all these different reports set up through Cognos, that it was different data every single time. And since it was set up by sales teams, they may not have a data background or have a very data-driven idea of different aspects of the reports too. Being the type of company that we are, Manpower being a human resource company, we have things that we need to track for customers, specifically headcount. Headcount is a very important measure to our clients. They want to know how many people are on assignment at their place of business at any given time, on a day, on a week, or a monthly basis. So headcount is one of our most popular reports. The problem is when you use a headcount report, it's a very specific type of report. And if you're not familiar with the different backgrounds of Manpower data, you could just as easily take a spend report and it would look very similar to a headcount report. And that did actually happen on many occasions when we did research. We found that people were actually using spend data to track their headcount data. So once again, since they weren't using the same data and that they had created these individual data silos for their accounts, we were finding that the data being used wasn't correct either. And I'm going to click on the customer business review so you can actually see what the old product used to look like. It is very graphic and lots of data put into one area overall. These are individual slides that were set up for specific locations. As you can see, they're kind of hard to read. Now this one is very different than some of the other ones because they had dashboards that were set up for the individual client locations. To me, being a data and visual person, I look at this and I'm not quite sure where I need to look. I like to keep things simplistic and also know that the viewer's eyes are being drawn to a specific data point or something that's going to give them meaning behind what the data actually is. And I'll go into that in my next slide after this. But I wanted to give you an overall view of what these actually look like for our clients. Turnover is actually one I'll go into in a little bit too. It kind of created an aha moment for us when we started taking different views and looks about what was going on with this. Looking at this, you can't really say, what's going on with my turnover? I'm not seeing a trend. I'm not seeing insight about what my negative turnover is versus my positive turnover. What's the story here? And that's really kind of what we wanted to take from this overall presentation. What's the overall story that's being told? Because there's really not one at this point. So that's kind of how this was born. We felt that we could create a scalable product that was automated that would service all of our clients. We didn't want to have these different siloed reports, these 20 different people who were doing 20 different things at any given time. And these 20 different people weren't just supporting one account. We're talking at least 300 accounts that were being supported by this individual group of 20 different people. So when you take that into consideration, we had a lot of area for potential improvement. So that's where Tableau helped me. Instead of having multiple reports feeding into it, we actually created with our BI team, we went through and created one report that was available in significantly less time. Rather than having to wait days for this report, we now had to wait under 10 minutes. And it was by our own volition. We didn't have to depend on someone else to bring us this data. We could access it on our own. And because it was set up the way it was always going to be the exact same data. You could pick your own dates, and you could pull whatever you needed to. If I wanted it right now, I could just go in there and pull it, and I would have it in just a few minutes. Rather than having sales support these with their individual teams as well, this was a project that was going to be supported by analytics going forward. That way we could centralize the requests, we could start to track them, and that's where we could identify opportunity as well. The data is now cohesive from one client to the next. If a new client is being onboarded, they can say, so what kind of reporting package do you have? Now we can actually provide them with something and say, this is what we provide to other clients today. And the biggest benefit to this overall, whereas it used to take weeks to create this, 3 to 4 weeks for a general team, and that was for a small review. For the big reviews, you would often have meetings set up at least 2 months in advance. We now take less than 30 minutes to complete a customer business review. And here's what the current templates look like. We do a basic overview that shows you, all right, you want to know what's going on with spend? Here's your headcount. Here's a quick snapshot of your overtime and your hours. Right off the bat, they know exactly, okay, here's some data points that I can look at and understand what's going on. And we do a bit deeper dive into some of the actual trends. And we want to give them a bit more insight than what they were given before. And this is where associates paid versus a full-time equivalent comes in. In order to optimize our programs the best they can, that's very dependent on the type of hours that go into each individual assignment. The closer the line between associates paid and full-time equivalent, the better. Now our salespeople can actually look at this and say, oh, look, I think I have an overtime issue, or no, it looks like a lot of my people are under hours. And it gives them a heads up about maybe I need to start looking at a specific location or their assignments overall. And it's the same with their financial spend as well. Now you can actually see how am I trending from one year to the next. And also, how am I performing quarter over quarter? And we break it down for them with their overtime, because overtime is a very expensive component if it can get out of hand, especially depending on what state you're doing business in. Whereas California has very different labor laws in comparison to Wisconsin, overtime is based on a daily basis, whereas Wisconsin is more of a weekly basis. So it really depends on where your program is taking place, and you want to keep that in check. And we also do a couple other views now. We can show them what kind of positions are trending the highest, how many hours go into those, how are they in comparison to previous years as well, how much do they cost? Because if they have the highest hours, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have the most expenses as well. And then once again, overtime management. This is a big one because looking at overtime percent is going to be a very different view of just looking at overtime hours, which is what we did previously. We're going to give them a couple more views of what they were not providing to clients before. And also what their trending is. Is there a specific month perhaps that they see more overtime? Is there something I need to look at there? It gives them a few more strategic points that they can bring up to their clients that they may not have had before. And the same with locations. They can see that maybe Minneapolis, Minnesota here had 8%, but they're not the highest as far as actual hours go. That would be Leesburg, Florida. And then turnover, I brought that up previously. We're doing a lot more with turnover. And you can see that there's an actual trend going on for year over year rather than just looking at a bunch of numbers. You can look at specific turnover now by locations and actual reasons behind what that is from year to year. And the next slide is actually one of my favorites now. This is our talent turnover. One of the biggest things that has come up over the last few years is negative turnover. Everyone is very concerned about negative turnover and how it's impacting their client. So instead of showing just what the actual numbers were, I wanted to show what the relationship was of the negative turnover to what we consider neutral and positive turnover. As you can see on here, the negative turnover is actually much less than what the neutral or the positive is. The majority of the turnover is actually very neutral. So you can see the relationship between all three of those end reason codes and how they play into it. And that's kind of what brings me to my aha moment. It was always assumed that the largest cause of ended assignments in the past was due to negative turnover. But once we actually started showing the relationship between turnovers, that we started to see negative's not what we thought it was at all. And it's generally one of the smaller turnovers. There's maybe the client here or there out of every 50 that has a higher turnover, but there's usually a really good reason behind that, or the type of program they are is very unique. So this has actually enabled us to say, no, your turnover is really not that bad. Negative is not what you thought it was. Overall, your program is running pretty efficiently. And the way that this was done is through our Tableau templates. Actually, everything that I showed you here today on all of those slides, each of those is a template that we set up for Tableau. So all we have to do is actually change our data points, and I will go into that in a second, actually. But I want to go through these so you can actually see, once again, what you see here is what we can provide to every single client now. It's not just one client, it's multiple clients. I seem to be missing a slide here. Here, I found it. So, and the method behind this, once again, how do we create this? We now have the self-service portal, and that is where multiple reports were reduced. Instead of having 5 or 6 reports that feed into a customer business review with multiple metrics, we now have one report that has those multiple metrics. And it's on demand rather than by request. And we can pick our own dates. And instead, we have one workbook to rule them all. We researched the reviews being delivered, and we found the most common and widely used metrics. We actually sat down with each of our individual sales teams and had them send us examples of what they were providing to their clients. Because just like the clients are our customer, the salespeople were analytics customer as well. We want to make sure that they were providing them with the tools they needed to go into the business reviews with their clients. We created the workbook in Tableau to encompass all of the most commonly used metrics. What I showed you there is the majority of them, but we also have a few behind the scenes that in case they need them or we have to pull them out, we have those already built as well. For each new business review, what we do is we actually go into our self-service portal, we pull the Excel data for our customer, then we save the customer file, and then we update the connection in the Tableau template. And that is what I would like to show you actually right now, is how easy it is for us to create our Tableau workbooks and our QBRs for our clients now. Bear with me while I bring up the data that I need. Aptly name a QBR demonstration. And here is our template. You will also see how slow my computer is and that I would like to get a new one. So if anyone would like to volunteer, I will accept your offer of a new computer. And here we go. As you can see, what we use today is actually Tableau Desktop. This would be Tableau H. I was fortunate enough to be in on the beta version of that when it was released, and I was quite happy because once I started using that, it put Tableau 7 to shame, actually. I love some of the new additions that we're able to use on here. So as you could see before in the PowerPoint, this is based off of dashboards. So each of these dashboards has multiple sheets feeding into it. But here are my data sources over here. As you can see, I don't work with extracts, and that is because of the type of templates that I have set up here. If I were to use the extracts, it wouldn't make it as easy to update the data as it is, especially because we're working with different client data every single time. So what I will do is go in and edit the connection. And then I will go back to wherever my data is housed. And I save some off. There it is. And we will hit OK. And pretty much there are 3 main ones in here that I use. Like I said before, there's a couple extra measures that we have set aside in case we need to provide them for our sales team. So that would be the assignment starts and the orders. Otherwise, the main ones that I use are the headcount, spend, and the turnover. Those encompass the majority of the metrics that we provide reporting for. So that was the hardest part right there, actually. And then pretty much what it'll do is update all of my data for every single sheet that I need it to. and my dashboards will be updated at that point. So this is what I've been calling my Tableau templates, actually, as I go through here. So generally, depending on the size of the client then, when I'm going through the dashboards, thanks to Tableau and the updates in 8, if I see it's a ton of locations, say for spend by location, I can just do that visual filter and then go in and change it. And then I just do a quick view overall of what's going on with my dashboards, make sure everything looks okay. Everything's looking good so far. Everything's in place. And just a couple more, and this is actually one of my older templates. I'm constantly updating it, which Tableau makes super easy. Like I had the different view on turnover, that is actually a recent one that we changed. So, and that, honestly, is all I have to do. Then we have our own individual template that we set up in PowerPoint to provide with Manpower thought leadership and things like that. Let me see if I have one here. Yep, here's a couple. We have what Manpower deems thought leadership, and what we do is put together called the Manpower Employment Survey that we provide in there as well. So it just has a couple other slides for Manpower in there that we provide and send it off to our sales team then. So that is an overview of how long it takes. So what was that, not even 5 minutes? Honestly, that's what it is for us. We save off the data and update our connections, and that's the majority of the work right there. The longest part is pulling down the data, which is so much better than it used to be. But through Tableau's ease of data connections and the way that we have our templates built, it updates it, and after a quick visual analysis, if everything is as it should appear, we can go ahead and send that off to our salespeople then. And if there's something they wanted to add at that point, they can definitely do that. So that is the major project that we actually took on for Tableau overall. It took us a while, more so from the data aspect and the self-service reports, to get those 5 or more reports that were being used previously and get those down into one usable, cohesive product that would work for the Tableau templates overall. But that was the majority of the work. I would say the easiest part was actually building out our templates and making sure that it was incorporating everything that we needed it to. So that was a huge learning curve for us overall of what we needed to do with our data. We've had a large amount of success with it, actually. It took us a little over a year to roll out the entire project. It was definitely a cultural shift for our salespeople, but overall, they have definitely grown to love it. There was such praise given to us by our sales team of, wow, this is some of the best looking stuff I have ever seen being provided to our clients before. I have someone who's been with the company for 12 years, Manpower. He works for Experis now. He's a director with them. And he said in his entire tenure with Manpower, he's never seen anything like it, and it's some of the best stuff that he's ever seen. The feedback overall has been extraordinary, actually. So we have definitely kind of hit a milestone as far as reporting goes that previously couldn't exist. We have our data people actually considering, oh, so what goes into your Tableau data feeds now? How does that work? And considerations that were never taking place before. So I want to show you some of the other cool stuff that we've been doing with Tableau as well. Being on an analytics team, we have to do more than just reporting. We have to do actual analysis of data too. For anyone who is an actual data geek or analyst out there, you know that sometimes it's really hard to disseminate where you need to look within your data. So based on some of the changes that we were restructuring to our field organization, we actually decided to roll out some control charts to help us to see where the actual outliers are within the data as well. For those of you who aren't familiar with control charts, Control charts actually help to focus your aim. They work mostly through the control limits that are found through the data. This is dependent on how much your data changes from one point in time to the next, and that's called your moving range. So when you know what your moving range is, that is what helps you to determine what your upper and lower control limits within your data are. Anything that falls outside of your upper and lower control limits are data points that you should focus on because they're not performing like the rest of your data. So as you can see here, this is actually a control chart, and this is going to help us to kind of aim our focus on what's going on with the data. So you can see here that we have a bunch of outliers. So this gives us an idea of where we need to look in the data. Here's the thing with control charts. They're not easy to build. There's a lot of different formulas that go into these. I would say that before this year, I had no idea how to build a control chart. But having to go through a Six Sigma class this year as well and get certified, it's become necessary for me to know what control charts are and how they are built. Overall, control charts generally are not something that's automated. You can build a very lengthy and manual template in Excel, but overall, they are not easy to build in there, and there's still a lot of different things that you need to put into them. There's also another software called Minitab. The thing with Minitab is it costs $1,000 license per person, and they're not very great looking. I'm talking about the old school Excel charts that I showed you before. That's kind of what Minitab looks like. So, and it's the same with kind of Cognos too. You know how it has that old school 90s grunge flannel look? I mean, that's not the cool, clear, precise look that you want for what's going on nowadays. I mean, Tableau has that down pat. They have that cool, geek chic look going on with it that everyone wants for their data. So what we really kind of took on as a challenge is, can our team actually build these? Can we find a way to do this through Tableau? Is there a way to? And so after scouring the internet and Google, which is one of my best friends, we actually found a tutorial on a website, not on the Tableau website, but actually someone's individual website that did a step-by-step process of how you could actually create the IMR charts, individual moving range charts, with control charts. So I took it on myself to actually see, could I build this? So it took a few hours, but step by step, I would pause the video after the first step, build it out in Tableau, move on to the next step, and build that out. And it took me probably a good 10 steps before I actually started thinking, holy cow, I think I can do this. And I think only data geeks can really understand that there is a certain sense of joy that you get from creating something that you thought otherwise impossible before. Because I was just completely ecstatic, and like some of my friends, and I built a control chart. But of course, nobody really knew what control charts were, so I just looked like a dork, honestly. So going on through that, there are a couple different changes I made to it overall, because on the website, what it actually had within this control chart, it allows you to do a drop-down menu for your chosen statistic. We didn't want to do that, because if you changed it on one workbook, then it would change all of the individual ones too. We actually wanted it to be one static statistic for each of our individual worksheets. So I actually did a variation on the one that was on the website, which if anyone wants to talk to me about it, feel free to approach me as well. But here, as you can see, this was our final product. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. You can see that it created a control chart, and just like how for our business reviews it was automated, it's the exact same for this. All we need to do is, this one is built off of an extract, so all we have to do is update our extract, and it populates our charts with our most frequent accounting week. As you can see down here, we work off of accounting week for these. So it has completely changed how we're able to show our individual markets, how they're performing and what's going on with our field changes. So this is one control chart. We actually, there's probably 20 different control charts that were built for this project. And we had to do them manually through MinTab or Excel. It would take us forever. But now the data feed is static and it's built off of extracts and it's so hands-off that we're total rock stars now at Manpower because we're able to build control charts. Another story about controlled charts, I went to the Brewer game this last weekend and all of us were talking about different aspects of our jobs. It was actually a girls' night off and I was in the company of nurses and I'm known as the nerd in that group. So they're talking about all these health issues. And so they actually had me give a little speech on what control charts are. So there I am with a beer in my hand trying to tell them about moving range and what upper and control limits are. So control charts really will get into your everyday speak, just letting you know. They're addicting. So along with the control charts, since they became really popular, I started using Tableau online as well. So for all those different data points that you saw out here, the outliers, we can now go on to this interactive root cause that I created and see what's the cause behind those outliers, what's going on. And the way that Tableau works, I created a bunch of different hierarchies. You can look at it just from the market level, or you can actually drill down from that and you can see, is it clients specifically that's driving it, not just the market, or even within that, is there a business view within or a business unit within that local client that's driving it too? So it really is very interactive for our different individual groups that are using it. You can filter it by the region with the color coding for the difference from one week to the next. You can see there's not one on here, but if it's red, that means, hey, you need to look at me. Or if it's green, it's like, woohoo, I'm doing awesome. So I can do a demo on this actually, but I can't do it today because it's actually not updated for my boss for this week. So I will have that come September though. So, but that's also something really awesome that we've done in addition to the control charts, but also now going into interaction through Tableau Online too. Another thing, trying to manage our data asset. We have a huge data asset, and we want to show how Manpower is viewing the world of work at large across the United States. So we've actually, this isn't a completed project. It's been one in the works, and we're still continuing to develop it. But we want to show what's happening, what's trending, what's going on overall as far as the economy goes and employment. So the slide you're looking at right here is actually what we show for turnover within geography and also within a specific industry too. So we have industrial, light industrial, marketing, medical, office, professional. As you can see on this, actually, that I was talking about how negative turnover is actually pretty low. You can see that over here. The highest one is actually for light industrial, but their overall turnover is actually 34%. So that's kind of what I was talking about, that relationship and that aha moment. So this is only one aspect of what we want to be able to compare. We can also show, are we adding more jobs? Are some locations like California, Arizona, are they adding more jobs than, say, Massachusetts or Vermont or Florida? The great thing about Manpower being global and also throughout the 50 states is that you can actually give details. Here's what I see, what's going on. So we want to take that data and start leveraging it, and that's never been done within Manpower before. So this is where we would love to go though. Right now you can get a lot of data through the Bureau of Labor Statistics and whatnot, but we want to become one of those foremost people or companies that you go to and say, no, they know what's going on. So that's really where we would like to head to with Tableau, where it really helps us to put a lot of this and pull it together, and not just through the data, but through the visual story that it's able to tell as well. It's such a visually compelling software when you see look at the map on here alone. I mean, it just pops. So I feel like it really plays to not just people who really want to know what's going on with the data, but you need that visual aesthetic as well. So that kind of completes as far as going on with Manpower and the different projects that we've taken Tableau and used it for. We're also trying to create a Tableau community too, a user group community where we can each learn from each other and each person's individual expertise within our different areas. We have a Wisconsin Tableau users group that actually has grown to 96 members. And from that, we actually recently created the Milwaukee Tableau users group. And as of right now on LinkedIn, we have 44 members that belong to that. We've only had a couple of meetings for the Milwaukee one, but I know Wisconsin has had a few more than that. They're quite popular. Pretty much what we do is we have people volunteer their different workspaces, and we'll travel from one person's place of business to the next. And I know for Milwaukee, what we do is we have our individual members will come up and present what's their individual use case as well. Very similar to what we're all doing here today, pretty much, and this week. So we're really hoping that we can learn from each other and we can create a community where we can really reach out to each other and trying to learn and grow within Tableau itself. Just like Manpower has identified what the human age is, I feel like this is just an extension of it. Everyone's trying to further we're our own human potential, and that's what we're trying to do. And I feel that Tableau really has helped to foster that, and it will take us further than we've been before. So thank you, and that's my presentation for today.